Good morning, everybody. How are you? It's good to see you. It's been a good weekend, actually. I'm liking the fact that the weather is warm and get to enjoy some pretty hot days outside. So, how was your weekend? What's going on with you? If you're watching the replay, feel free to have a little conversation in the comments after the fact. We're happy to respond to anybody that comments after the video. If you are watching me live, hey, welcome. Thank you. I appreciate you being here. If you don't know me, I'm Nick. If you're new to Define My Day, I'm Nick. I'm the creator of Define My Day. And I come here every Monday to just try to help you get along this this lifetime journey of continuous improvement. Today we're going to talk about something I think is very important, something I think that we all tend to overcomplicate life, and I think that keeping it simple is something we need to focus more on in everything. And I'll give you one such example. This sort of just reaffirmed it for me. I'm going to be talking about a couple of the books I'm reading right now, one of them, this book I just started right now, which I know I'm going to love already. It's called The One Thing, and it's just about, it's about what we talk about all the time. Like instead of doing a million things or a big list of things, do the one thing that's really important for making you happy and fulfilled. So I know I'm going to love this book. I'm only 4 chapters in. I just started reading it yesterday, but that's part of this whole thing right now. Another thing that made me think of that, of this topic today, was I just started rereading the Daily Stoic. It's just 365 days of new meditations on wisdom, perseverance, and the art of living. And today's was, I thought, pretty important, actually. Pillage from all sources is the topic. And it's a quote from Seneca. It says, "I'll never be ashamed to quote a bad writer with a good saying." And I think in today, now we're going around with cancel culture, right? There are people with differing opinions, but actually have some really good things to say once in a while. And it doesn't mean that it's bad advice. What he writes here is, one of the striking things about Seneca's letters and essays is how often he quotes the philosopher Epicurus. Why is that strange? Because Stoicism and Epicureanism are supposed, oh my God, I can't even read today. I've had enough coffee. Stoicism and Epicureanism are supposed to be diametrically opposed philosophies. In reality, the differences, while significant, tend to be overblown. But this is true to form for Seneca. He was looking for wisdom, period. Didn't matter where it came from. This is something that a lot of fundamentalists in religion, philosophy, or anything seem to miss. Who cares whether some bit of wisdom is from a Stoic? Who cares whether it perfectly jibes with Stoicism? What matters is whether it makes your life better. Whether it makes you better. Right? What wisdom or help would you be able to find today if you stopped caring about affiliations or reputations? How much more could you see if you were just focused on merit? Daily Stoic. I've been hitting this one for the past week and really, wondering why I ever quit. There's a couple of other things in here that we'll hit at other times. One of the ones that I think that aligns with what we're talking about today is don't sweat the small stuff. And this is Marcus Aurelius. He says that it's essential for you to remember that the attention you give to any action should be in due proportion to its worth, for then you won't tire and give up if you aren't busying yourself with lesser things beyond what should be allowed. So basically, don't wear yourself out on stuff that doesn't matter. Right? So how is everybody? I don't see any comments in here yet. Everybody having a good day so far? How's Monday treating you so far? My weekend, I spent a lot of it outside. I definitely decompressed quite a bit. Did a little bit of yard work, did a little bit of work around the house, dabbled in some work for the business, but for the most part, enjoyed time with my kids, enjoyed time with some friends. Yesterday, my younger son Ryan has been begging to go fishing, and I've been talking about it with my brother. So we took them to a little pond in the woods, and we caught some bluegill, and they had a blast with it. We caught a turtle. We caught, we found a crawfish just walking across our path, big one, like that big. So it was overall, it was a really good day. Obviously, got a lot of sun, but all good things, all good things. So it was a great weekend. So I'm still not seeing comments. I'm gonna check out the website real quick because that's not normal. What do we got going on here? So apparently my software's not working because I see some comments here. All right, so look, I'm going to open this up. Good morning, Laura. Good morning, Sandy. Good morning, Janice. Angel, did not sleep well last night, so I'm very tired today, but I will push through what I need to do and sleep early. That's great. That's great. And I actually do want to talk about part of that's part of what I want to discuss in this whole thing. I posted an article last week about a Harvard study that mentioned it identified 3 behaviors, good and bad, for people with depression, or how to avoid depression, right? So they identified behaviors that are most common in people with depression and people that don't. So basically, socializing is a good behavior to have, right? The more you can socialize, the better as far as avoiding depression. And then on the bad side, the behaviors that you don't want to engage in too much of would be watching TV and excessive napping. And so, it's not like, I feel like the responses we got were generally, especially to the email, were really positive. And I think a lot of people can identify in themselves, okay, I see this. Like, this is it's an opportunity to improve my behavior, to improve my health. But I got a couple responses, one email and a couple responses in the user group that I want to address. It's very, it wasn't a cure-all. The article didn't address all of depression as a whole. It wasn't a cure-all. It was identifying behaviors that were positive and negative. And we don't need to, not every discussion needs to be all-encompassing. The other thing is that we can take simple steps to help ourselves. One person said it was a version of victim blaming, which is totally untrue. Totally untrue. We have to take some agency for ourselves. Even if you are a person with depression or susceptible to depression, you have to take on agency for yourself and be responsible for what's happening to you. That doesn't mean you forego all of other treatments. I'm not saying quit your therapist and quit your antidepressants and quit everything else you're doing. Just stop watching TV. That's not true at all. But there are simple things that we can do to improve our current situation. And I'm going to kind of illustrate this on the whiteboard in a minute here. I'll get to it. Ellie says, trying to determine if 2 hurricanes are about to hit and how to best prepare. Yeah, I feel for you. That's wishing you guys the best. That does not look like a good situation. So obviously that would be a priority for people. Yeah. Let me see. Can I get some comments up here? No comments. Not working. All right. So if you guys are commenting on YouTube or in the user group, I'm not going to be able to see it because I can only see the Facebook page right now. But what I am going to do is switch over to the whiteboard, and I want to kind of explain something like how I see this whole thing as far as like on a happiness scale. So I'm going to move over to the whiteboard. I'll be right back. I'll see you in a minute. All right. So it looks like the microphone's working, which is great. And so this is sort of how I see a simplistic and keeping it simple life and happiness in general, right? So if over here is like totally blissfully happy and we just like fulfilled, like we're just completely on purpose, and every day we wake up going, yeah, this is going to be a great day, right? And then over here, we are, that's bad. Like things are bad, right? Like we're having a really hard time with it. We're just everything just seems to be going wrong. We're depressed. We don't want to leave the house. Like it's just life is not great, right? And so here is sort of where I imagine like I'm probably like a little bit right of center, right? I don't think I'm blissfully happy. I don't think it's like one of those things that we're striving to attain, but I'm not quite there. And in fact, research shows that we always, like the mind always tries to get back to here. Like no matter, like you ever have that experience where you reach like this goal and you think like, yeah, once I retire, I'm going to be so happy. Or once I get the new house, I'm going to be so happy. Well, in reality, you get here for a moment and then like you just kind of go back to this place. Your brain always just sort of defaults to this area right here. It's just normal, right? Normal people. So we're never really experiencing life here. But, we don't want to experience life down back here either, but sometimes we do, sometimes we do. And so our actions are all sort of relative, right? Somebody over here, when they read that article about less TV and less napping and more socializing, maybe they might be going every night of the week. They might be part of a book club. They might be in networking groups. They might be in like all the like organizations. Like maybe they're on the board of directors for a nonprofit. Like they're doing a lot of social things, right? So for them, losing a couple of those things, the inability to socialize, like during a pandemic, they might still be socializing, but be right here and be kind of upset about it, right? Be a little bit depressed about it, like be sad. It might really hurt their overall well-being, okay? Over here, somebody that's super depressed, that never leaves the house, that watches 8 hours of TV, that maybe sleeps away the day by this person's standards, right? This person, they read this article and go, okay, so it's telling me I need to socialize more and I need to stop watching TV, right? Well, you can't. All right, you can't just stop watching TV. That's just like your brain isn't going to know what to do. And you can't get all the way over to here where this person is as far as socializing. The skills aren't going to be there. The energy levels aren't going to be there. Like it's just not going to be something that you can't make this leap. So in life in general and with Define My Day and the little things that we do in Define My Day, we're only trying to take small steps, right? Simple steps. So if this person's watching 10 hours of TV today, well, maybe we try to cut it down to something reasonable, 6 hours, right? Which would be unreasonable for this person, but almost cutting it in half for this person, okay? Socializing. This person isn't going out every week. They're barely talking to people as it is. So you find one really good friend and touch base for 10 minutes a day. That's a 10 times increase in socializing compared to what they were doing before. It's all relative. So wherever you are on this scale, it doesn't matter. If you're here and an improvement is, one phone call per day, then just do that. You don't have to make it so that you're over here and judge yourself by the fact that you can't make that leap. That's an impossible thing to do. No matter where you are, if you're here, if you were here, if you were super social and you find yourself getting a little upset and emotionally distraught over the fact that you can't be here anymore, well, be aware of that and understand that. and try to, you got to try to do the things to stop from going all the way this direction and hold yourself here and try to creep back this way, right? Maybe your definition of being over here is different. Realizing that most people are here anyway and you're going to default to that. We know that, right? We just don't want to be stuck. We don't want to be stuck on this side, right? Understanding that this is fluid, goes back and forth. It depends on what life is throwing at us right now. Some of us aren't going to the gym the way that we want to. Some of us aren't keeping up the diets that we want to. Some of us aren't keeping the social lives that we want to. Some of us can't even work. We don't know where we're getting money from. There's a lot of stressors going on. So we're going back and forth on this scale. And we just have to change our behaviors a little bit to try to counterbalance that. But if you're so far down this scale, understand that small changes, small incremental changes create huge results over time, not in one day, over time. You build on that. And so that's something that's mentioned, and I'm going to see if I have my little cloth here. I don't know where I threw it. Where the heck did that go? All right, so I'm just going to use my hand. We've talked about this in the past, right? The small changes. If this is a time, right? This is your timeline. And we've talked about how if you can do a 0.01% improvement over time, you get geometric growth. So it's not linear. Like, it's linear for a while. It seems linear. You don't even see a difference. And then all of a sudden, you're getting that kind of a change. And that's something that he mentions in this book, The One Thing, that I'm reading right now. It's in one of the first chapters. Is that if you can make a slight improvement over time, after a while, your results get exponential. And he gets into examples of where this happens. And that's something that we're going to talk about in the future here. But I just want to, like, if you are somebody depressed, or if you're worried about sliding into depression, you can keep following a bad recipe, right? A bad plan, watching more TV, sleeping a lot more, and the results you get are not going to be positive. It's just like, it's simple. It's like it's a complex problem with a simple solution. Have healthy behaviors. Do healthy things for yourself. We're all, like, people want to imagine that our lives are so complex and we're different than everybody else, but in reality, our physiology, like, what's good for me is good for you also. In just about every way. There's nuance in there and there's differences, but biologically it's all pretty much the same. And so if we're doing unhealthy things, then we're going to end up with an unhealthy result. It's that simple. And so look, you keep up with your therapy, you keep up with antidepressants if you're on them, you keep up with whatever your therapist is recommending for you. But now we have added in here, try to socialize a bit more, try to watch less TV, and try to nap a little bit less, right? And try to improve that as we go forward. In the results, you're not going to notice anything. You're not going to feel any different here. You're not going to feel any different here. But eventually you're going to be like, hey, looking back over your journaling and define my day, you're going to say, wow, okay, it's a little bit different. I see a different mindset. And this might be a couple of months. It might be a couple of years. I myself took years, but I also was kind of following a bad, disorganized plan, right? And so, but eventually you get here and wow, right? Wouldn't you want a plan that takes you this way? And wouldn't you want it to be as simple as socializing just a little bit more and watching a little bit less TV? Wouldn't that be just a simple plan? Now, there's other things involved in there. Look, we just talked about sleep, right? You got to sleep more. You got to sleep, like, have a good sleep schedule, right? One of the things, I think it was Jordan Peterson, who says one of the first things he does with someone who's depressed is get them on a low sugar diet and a solid sleep schedule. And those two things are the foundation for having for improvement with depression. Incidentally, Jordan Peterson would be one of those people where you gain wisdom from people you may not agree with in another way, right? Jordan, when we first started this, I had a photo of Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life in the background of one of our ads. And people latched onto that, because he's, they see him as somebody, anti-woman or whatever, which he denies, and I don't believe he's anti-woman either, but people misconstrue some of what he says, right? So it upsets people. But I didn't even realize it when I was reading the book, when we took the photo. It wasn't until after I researched it, and I was like, uh-oh, okay, that might not be the best, right? But so his lessons are still pretty solid. His 12 rules for life are pretty solid. So while I don't agree with his politics, although he denies some of the politics that are attributed to him, I'm not a follower of his. I'm not like espousing his beliefs. But what I do think is if you read his 12 rules for life, those 12 rules are pretty good, right? And so, taking wisdom from different sources, I can learn from him while still not agreeing with everything else that is attributed to him. But I would say, like, these little rules, if we can follow these like little rules for ourselves, we can improve our own situations. And you don't have to be depressed. You just like gather little bits of information from people that are successful, that are happy, and you follow those guidelines and improve. And over time, look, again, you might not feel it, but over time you end up over here. And that's what's important, right? We don't want to be taking the wrong path. We don't want to be taking the downward path. And the downward path probably looks like not taking responsibility for your situation. It probably looks like doing more bad things that just make you feel good in the moment. That's not what we want to do, okay? And that's not why we're here. That's not Define My Day and Define Life as a company is not here to enable people to feel good about themselves while doing bad things. That is not what we are about. So we are going to put out some challenging things once in a while, although I didn't think that article was going to be challenging last week for people. But, for me, as somebody that has suffered through depression, that has had rough times, I would look for things that are simple to follow, like easy advice. Hey, do this, and you'll see some improvement, right? Why wouldn't you want to take advice like that? It's a Harvard study. It wasn't even an opinion piece. It was a Harvard study. Results from a big, extensive Harvard study that said, do this, don't do these two things. If you want to improve your situation, you do the simple things to improve your situation. Right? All right, I'm going to go sit back down. Be right back. All right, switch my mic. All right, I'm back. All right, so I got a little mark there. So that's kind of like the way I look at it. Like, we can do incredibly simple things and we overcomplicate life. I don't know why we do it, but we do it, and it happens in so many different ways. So many different ways. This is actually the book I just finished. What Makes Your Brain Happy and Why You Should Do the Opposite. Very much goes into that, like, we try to make ourselves feel good right now. Our brain wants to feel good right now. But in reality, that's not necessarily what we should be doing. So I've highlighted many things in this book and dog-eared a lot of pages. This is something I'm going to be referencing a lot, and I got a lot of notes to go over for that. But before I get into the comments, I am going to hit our Do One Thing Every Day That Centers You book. It is not enough to have a good mind. The main thing is to use it well. And the prompt is how I used my mind well today. And that is Descartes. So how are you using your mind well today? All right, I'm going to get into these comments. Amy says, good morning, had a good weekend, and had 2 of our 3 kids over for a belated birthday lunch. Awesome. Hadn't seen them in a while. The third one called while they were here. A good day. Very good day. That's awesome. Good for you, Amy. Janice says, my job is on hold, so running 2 home businesses and found a side job helping a friend. Hubby happy if there is income. Who cares if I'm on overload? Janice, I care that you're on overload. And look, there are seasons. We are not going to live a balanced life all the time, right? I mean, it's just balance is almost impossible to have. We're going to one day need to take time to make ourselves healthy. And other days we're going to lean more towards a sprint where we need to do a lot of work and just make sure that we're in a good place financially. I've been there. And we've been there quite a bit, actually, over the past couple of years. I think this is where awareness comes in. I think this is like, you understand that I have to hustle right now. And we need to have money coming in because overall, we need that money to be healthy. But also be aware of when you need to rest and take a breath, and that what you are doing when you're resting is actually restful. We talked about that last week, right? Where, make sure when you are resting that it's actually good stuff. And so, bringing it back to this TV reference, a lot of people say they're decompressing or checking out by watching TV, but in reality, the result is not healthy. The result could be even depression. And so we maybe need to find a different thing to do to rest. For me, it's been meditation. I've been meditating a lot in the past couple of weeks, just laying out in the sun. I've been reading a ton over the past couple of weeks, just trying to get back to that healthy foundation. And I'll tell you, I feel better. I feel, not that I felt bad before, but I just felt a little stagnant, and I feel a lot better by doing this stuff. And it's fun. It's just so hard to do those things because they have to be more intentional to do them, especially when you're hustling like we were, moving and everything else we had going on with the pandemic. It's hard to do those things that are good for you, and it's easy just to kind of drift into TikTok or TV. But we have to be aware of the impact that's having. And sometimes it takes a while to become aware of it. The same way that it takes a while to realize we're getting better, sometimes it takes a while to realize that we're going downhill. Julie says, I'm in Iowa, and we were where we were hit a derecho land hurricane 2 weeks ago. I saw that word a couple weeks ago, and I didn't know what that meant. Every town has substantial damage and still without power. Wow. A large tree landed on a house, but luckily no holes in the roof. Now to determine structural damage, definitely will need to use Define My Day to stay on track. Wow. Julie, sorry to hear that. I hope everything works out for you. That's crazy. I'll have to look into that. I didn't realize that's what that was. I only lived through I lived through a typhoon when I was stationed on Guam back in, I think it was 97. Had like over 200-mile-an-hour winds. It was crazy. And I know like that, even that wasn't as bad as things like Katrina and these hurricanes that have hit in the South. And it's you look at what's going on with the wildfires, and to be in a situation like that where you really, like, no matter how comfortable you are or well off you believe you are or how much you think you prepared, things just hit us and blindside us. And that's all the more reason to try to have as much under control as we can, because eventually it's all going to not be under control. Even people that thought they had great jobs before this pandemic now are in crazy situations. I think of restaurants all the time, like people that have had really successful restaurants all of a sudden can't operate, by law can't operate, right? And it's just it's night and day. Everything's changed like that. So Sandy says, I had a comment last week about negative experience with social distancing and how you handled that. Want to elaborate? Yeah. So last week, and it's been going on all summer. Like, people get so mad about the boundaries that I've implemented for myself. And I think it's funny. You can probably look at this even before the pandemic hit. Boundaries are hard. And a lot of times we don't adhere to our own boundaries because it upsets other people. And then it becomes like sort of a toxic little experience if it doesn't become a toxic relationship. And so, in specifically now with the pandemic, and I'm not going to get into specifics because I don't want anybody to take offense. If anybody that knows me personally is watching this, but basically it's this: is that risk as far as getting sick is a matter of personal preference in a way, right? There are certain things we do as a country to protect the whole, right? Like wearing masks. But like people have different levels of risk they're willing to take on personally. Whether it's being in a crowd of 25, if that's what the limit is, or going to a restaurant, or whatever, like sending your kids to school. And so the way I kind of went through this process is like, excuse me. At first, we got like everybody else, we got like super paranoid, right? In March, we were disinfecting everything that came into the house. We weren't talking to anybody. We didn't leave the house for 2 months, right? Unless we had to. But as we've kind of understood what's going on, and there's political pressures and societal pressures and things, my thought has been this. My goal is to be here next year healthier than now, with my entire family in good health. And so with that in mind, I have to make decisions that make sure that happens to the best of my ability. And so, I follow the guidelines, right? I wear a mask. I make my kids wear a mask. I try to minimize the amount of times we go out. But as it comes to being social, I try to socialize with people that are following similar guidelines. Now, that doesn't mean everybody has to follow my rules. But what it does mean is that if somebody is not adhering to the guidelines that I do, whether they travel or have parties or go to bars or go to restaurants or whatever, like wherever I want to draw the line, I don't have to assume their risk by inviting them into my home or going to their home. Like maybe we socialize outside in the street, 6 feet away, whatever that might be. But what bothers me, I think, is that when I have my own boundaries, when I have my own limits, if I wouldn't do something and you would, I'm not going to assume the risk that you are willing to assume by then getting close to you again, right? Physically close, right? And people take offense to that. But listen, I didn't have the positive experience you got. Like, I'm willing to give up going to a restaurant. I'm willing to give up getting on a plane. I'm willing to give up going to a party or a bar because it doesn't adhere to my vision, or it doesn't lead me to my vision of having a healthy family in a year. That just, it's too much risk for me. And so I love going to bars. I love going to restaurants. I love getting on planes and flying to places. But if I am willing to forego that positive experience, why should I still have to take on the risk that you undertook to have that experience for yourself, right? So yeah, we're going to distance, but then you don't get mad at me because I've set my boundaries, right? And so that's a hard thing to get through, and it's not something that I anticipated going into this. Like I think I anticipated that most people would be on the same page. But I think it's become so blurry. It's hard to navigate, right? And and I think also people want science to fit the storyline that makes them happy. And I think that's kind of went into that depression article too, where people because socializing more, watching less TV, and napping less didn't fit what they wanted to do, they rejected it as a whole. Science doesn't have to fit what we want. Science is just like a hypothesis that you then prove or disprove, and then you get the result. And so in a big study, the results are these 3 things. Whether you like it or not, that's the 3 things. And so the same thing with the virus, right? Like, science is science. And so we follow the science and we end up with a good result. When we don't follow it, we don't. We don't need to make it too complicated. So I think how I navigate this thing with, how I navigate, the stress of having to deal with other people's boundaries and my boundaries and how, we're willing to work within them or without them, is to make as many decisions up front, not have to make the decision in the moment. So if you decide this is my boundary, and when somebody approaches me with, trying to get over my boundary or within my boundary, this is going to be my response. If you front load that decision, you don't have to keep making that decision every time the situation happens. And your mind will sort of be prepared to say, well, no, and this is why. And to be honest, I've looked at it as a challenge. Like when a guy comes into my house to repair my, what was that? Oh, we had to get a new dryer. Our dryer broke, right? And so the guy was delivering my dryer, and he was walking in and disconnecting the old one without a mask on. And I'm like, and I've already decided a month ago that anytime that would happen, I was going to ask them to put a mask on, right? And to me, like, I hate being in that position. Like, please don't put me in that position to have to make you put a mask on. I don't want to have this conversation. But I realized that I was going to have the conversation. So now it's a challenge. Now it's a challenge to have the conversation in a gentle way where I simply ask somebody to do what I need them to do to, observe my boundary and do it without pissing them off, right? Like not sounding like a jerk on my end. Like, can you please put your mask on? Like, no, like I'm going to try to do it in a gentle way and still get what I want, right? So that's it. That's the challenge that I like. Every time somebody walks into my house without throwing a mask on, I try to make sure and try to practice doing it in an assertive but gentle way. So, you can look at it that way too. It's a challenge. You're trying to like navigate social situations, difficult social situations. Another Iowa person. Tamara, that's awesome. So Tamara says, I plan to send out some happy mail, to brighten someone else's day. Have a blessed week. That's awesome. That's awesome. So, like, that's one of those things, like, even a thank you, right? Like, saying thank you to somebody or sending them some flowers or a bottle of wine or, like, whatever works, like, just for the heck of it, like, doing something nice. But sending somebody a quick handwritten note like, hey, thanks for being a good person, whatever your happy mail might be, that's really cool. That's really cool. Very cool, Tamara. I like that. Brenda says, tomorrow, I'm going to bring this over because I'm having a hard time reading it. Tomorrow is back to school for my two kids, senior and sophomore. They are doing a hybrid schedule. I'll be working from home when they are home. They both have special needs, so it's going to be interesting. I'll have to drag my work desktop computer back and forth. Yeah, that's not easy. Not easy at all. And the school situation is tough. And that explains why a lot of people get upset about not being able to work. I mean, restaurant owners especially, like that's an easy example because they're having a really hard time. But, workers that need their kids to go back to school because they need to work, right? Or people that are working regardless of, whether they've been deemed essential or not. Like when somebody's trying to survive, pay bills, not let the business that they've built for years collapse, of course they're going to want to handle that and lower, lower their standards for the risk that they're willing to accept with the virus because they're risking losing their house. So there's a solid thing that they have to worry about in losing their house. The virus is like a maybe in their mind or in a lot of people's minds, or like there's still a chance that they might not even get sick even if they got it. So there's a certainty I'm going to lose my house. I'm going to go to work, right? I'm going to open my restaurant. I'm going to, everybody has to balance their own scales. I could not socialize ever, right? Not see friends ever, not have my kids go out with other kids and ride bikes in the neighborhood ever because I want to minimize my risk of the virus. But at the same time, I want my kids to be socialized. I want to see my friends and family, right? So we have to navigate that risk and decide what risks we're willing to take and what the benefit is in the end. Janice says, I read a chapter, Catnap, 30 to 60 minutes, or just a few minutes. Yeah, that's great. And so it's funny, and that's what stopped me from reading for a while, is I felt like it was oppressive, right? And what I started to do is just keep my book near me, or where I would be most of the time, like out in a hallway. And if I had a spare 10 minutes, I would pick up the book and read as much as I could for 10 minutes. And I did that last week. That's how I actually read a lot last week, is I would read for half an hour in the sun, and as I got too hot and as my mind started to wander, I would get up, walk around. I would even meditate for like 2 or 3 minutes, and then I would get back down, sit down, and I was able to go really strong for another 20 or 30 minutes. So you just got to make it compatible for you. Don't overdo it and burn out, no matter what the thing is. 2 boys remote schooling. Yeah, so we're remote schooling too, Janice. I personally I think, honestly, I think hybrid, watching what the colleges are doing, I don't think hybrid's going to last too long anyway. And I just felt like, that was just, I would love my kids to get into a school, right? I would love my kids to meet other kids. I couldn't make that leap from a risk perspective in my case. I know other people do, and other people want other things. If my kids were older, I think I would have a harder time keeping them home, because they have other wants and needs that I really have no influence on. They want to be social. It might be their last year. There's a lot going on there. So there's a lot of factors and variables that make it a little bit easier for me with my kids being younger. Hey, Sandy, thank you. Sandy says my comments on boundaries are great, working on those. Yeah, so boundaries for me are something that I've had to work on a lot over the years. Lynn and I have worked on them in our marriage. I've worked on them with, people in my life. A lot of times people I love a lot, but they can't adhere to boundaries. In fact, they're always trying to push boundaries, to agitate or I don't know, get a rise, get attention. I don't know what it is. And so I've had, my boundaries have been to completely distance, and it doesn't mean I don't love them. It just means I know that for me to be healthy, I need to be as far away as possible. So sometimes a boundary is a huge DMZ, but other times a boundary is just cutting somebody off before they do something, or just telling them, stating look, I can't do this because, So it's boundaries are tough, especially if you grow up in a society where you want to be polite and you want to be nice and you want to other people to feel good, and and that's a kind of learning more about empathy over the years, and learning about how to be kind with people, and how to be understanding with people, and how to I've bounced a lot back and forth trying to understand where the boundaries should be. And one of the things in regard to empathy and boundaries that I think was really impactful was in Brene Brown's Dare to Lead. And she talked about, you can be empathetic, but that doesn't mean you have to crawl down into the hole with them. That's not being empathetic. That's toxic, right? And I don't know if she said it exactly that way, but that's the point that I got from it. So you can be empathetic. You can be sympathetic, not to the point that it damages you. So with that said, I am going to get on with my day. I have a fairly, a decent week ahead of me. It's not, I don't have huge projects that I'm working on right now. It's solid amount of work. I'm just going to keep on a decent pace, address it as I can, and also make sure I'm spending some time with my kids, and because they're going to school in a week and a half remotely, but it's still a different schedule, so that's going to be some upheaval on our end. So trying to handle all that. But listen, if you take anything away from what I'm saying today, keep it simple. Don't try to overcomplicate it. Focus on the things that are most important to you and align it with where you want to go. If you're doing something on a daily basis that is not taking you in a direction where you're moving more to the right on that scale that we talked about earlier. You know, like this one right here. Let me go back to it real quick. Like, if you're not moving to the right on that scale, if you are just stagnant in one place, that's not okay, right? It shouldn't be okay for you. You want to take small steps, healthy steps, to move forward. Watch every day. Analyze like what I did today and how I feel about it. It's that simple. And do the healthy things for you. And eventually you start that hockey stick, like where things get really, really good. All right. You know, where you start to notice significant improvement on a daily basis. All right. Everybody have a great week. I will see you through the comments in the user group, and I'll see you here on the Facebook page a couple times. Have a great week. Stay healthy, and I will see you all soon.